The Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is an episode in the epic Mahabharata written by sage Vyasa more than 5,000 years ago. It contains the teaching of Lord Krishna given to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. In the Mahabharata, the Pandavas and the Kauravas were cousins. Pandu had 5 sons called Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, and the twins Nakula and Sahadeva. They were called the Pandavas. King Dhritarashtra ruled the kingdom of Kurus from his capital Hastinapur. He had 100 sons called the Kauravas. Duryodhana was the eldest of the Kauravas. The Pandavas and the Kauravas were brought up by the wise men Bhishma and Drona, who taught them the art of warfare and gave them a good education. But as soon as they grew up, Duryodhana became jealous of the Pandavas' glory. He plotted against the Pandavas with his evil uncle Shakuni to get hold of the Pandavas' wealth. They invited Yudhishthira to join them in a game of dice. Shakuni cheated them in the game and won not only their kingdom, but also sent the Pandavas on exile for 13 years. The Pandavas kept to the deal, and after the set term was up, they decided to go back and ask for their kingdom, but Duryodhana refused to return it to them. Krishna, the maternal cousin of the Pandavas, decided to go to Duryodhana with a peace offer. He met Duryodhana's father, Dhritarashtra, and said, "Hail, O mighty king! I have come to you for justice. Give the Pandavas' kingdom back to them. Let there be peace." Dhritarashtra replied, "Krishna, I agree with you, but I am unable to convince Duryodhana. Try and convince him yourself." Krishna then returned to Duryodhana and said, "Give the kingdom back to the Pandavas. You must all live together in peace." But Duryodhana would not listen. Even when Dhritarashtra, Bhishma, and Drona advised Duryodhana to give back the Pandavas' kingdom, he stood firm to his decision. Krishna then went back to the Pandavas. "Yudhishthira," he said, "I'm afraid that now there is no other choice but to fight back. At least we tried the way of peace." "Then let there be war. We will fight for what is ours," cried the Pandavas together. The Pandavas, along with their friends, moved towards the Kurukshetra, the battlegrounds of the Kurus. They divided their army into 7 divisions and faced their enemies in the battlefield. Arjuna led the Pandava army with Krishna as his charioteer. The air was filled with the sound of conches, beating of drums, clanking of weapons, trumpeting of elephants, and the neighing of horses. Arjuna picked up his bow with great confidence and asked Krishna to drive his chariot to the center of the battlefield. "I want to see my enemies," he said. Krishna readily agreed and drove the chariot to the center. Arjuna looked at the armies. He saw his teachers and elders, friends and relatives on the other side. It made him very sad, and he said, "How can I fight my own people for a small kingdom?" Hearing this, Krishna said, "This is not the time to despair, Arjuna. Take up your weapons and fight. You are a warrior, and it is your duty to fight for a cause. Cast aside all your doubts, Arjuna. Do not think about the consequences, for they are not in your hands. The important thing is to act. The outcome of your action is secondary." Arjuna was not convinced. Krishna advised him, saying, "Don't think of yourself as the doer. God is the doer, and you are an instrument of his will. You cannot truly kill Bhishma or anyone else, as you can only kill the body but not the soul. A human body is subject to change, Arjuna. It moves from birth to childhood, to youth to old age, and finally death." The soul, on the other hand, is neither born nor does it die. When a human dies, his soul moves to a new body, just like a human changes clothes. The soul is immortal and cannot be destroyed. You cannot cut it with your weapons, burn it with fire, or wet it with water. It is beyond the physical. Detach yourself from the physical, and you will understand that you are but an instrument in the hands of the Almighty. Seeing Arjuna's dejection, the Pandava army was gloomy. Duryodhana, too, was puzzled. He turned to his brother and said, "What is the matter with Arjuna? Why isn't he picking up his bow?" His brother replied, "Perhaps Arjuna is afraid after seeing the might of our army." Meanwhile, Arjuna said, "I am still confused, Krishna. How do I attain detachment?" Krishna replied, "When you remove yourself from the attachments of the body and become one with your soul, then you will attain the state of detachment." Detachment is freeing oneself from the emotions of action. Detach yourself from earthly relations, Arjuna, and develop a universal relationship with all. Look at everyone, whether friend or foe, as the same. Then you will be able to reach the ultimate. The ultimate? What is the ultimate? How can a human being attain it? Asked Arjuna. Krishna smiled and said, "The ultimate is God Almighty, which is within each one as the Atma. A union with the self is a union with the Supreme Being. This union is called yoga. As one practices and perfects the yoga, he attains the highest form of enlightenment, which lies in the knowledge of the self. He cannot distinguish between the various forms of life, for he is aware that the same Supreme Being is visible within all living creatures. He is friendly and kind to all. Honor and shame do not affect him. He is beyond heat, cold, pleasure, or pain. It is such a man that I value." Krishna then bestowed Arjuna with the divine sight, so that he could see Krishna's real form. Krishna said, "Many different faiths worship many forms in many ways. Ultimately, they all reach me. Abandon yourself and believe in me, Arjuna. Then you will be free of attachment and thereby sin." On seeing the divine form of Krishna, Arjuna overcame his fear and despair. He realized that he must fulfill his duty as a warrior, and so gave himself to God. With great resolve, Arjuna picked up his bow and shot an arrow. Hearing the twang of Arjuna's bow, his army was heartened and prepared for battle. "Arjuna will fight! He has taken up his weapons!" shouted the soldiers in joy. Thus came the beginning of the Mahabharata and the birth of the famous teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. The wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita helped Arjuna lead the Pandavas to victory and restore peace. These teachings have also inspired and enlightened us through the ages and even today remain a great source of wisdom. The Bhagavad Gita offers very lucid and clear explanations of how our body is made, how our body and mind should interact to achieve peace in this world and beyond.